Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today we're going to be doing a review of Death Knight Azerite Armour as they've implemented the chest piece into the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and decide what exactly is going on with these pieces of armor and really see if they're helping us or not. So let's jump into this. So here's the first piece of Azerite armor. Obviously, it's going to be the chest piece that they've implemented into the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Obviously, we got the neck piece, but we can't see any deeper into the neck piece currently, but we can look at what's going on with this chest piece. Now, as we open up the chest piece with a shift right click, it seems we've got some talent abilities that we can select that are going to change the current spec that we're playing by a minute amount. Doesn't seem to be huge per se, but it is big enough to completely affect gameplay style. Now what I mean about that is we've got 4 selections we can put into the first talent. Obviously most of these are going to be spec related, so if you're playing an Unholy DK, obviously you're not going to spec into Icy Citadel or Deep Cut. So let's talk about what these do. Alright, so the first Unholy talent that you'll be specking into is Festering Doom, which Death Coil causes your next Festering Strike to deal an additional 97 damage. 97 damage doesn't really sound like too much, but obviously playing Unholy DK, smaller damages add up. So if you use a Death Coil, it adds 97 damage to your Death Coil. That would add, 140, or not 140, about, roughly about 200 extra damage if it crits, something along those lines. Definitely can be a major effect when putting in a lot of damage on a target, when dots are going off, when pets are hitting the target, and it can add up over time, obviously. I mean, it's not like a giant buff, but it's enough to affect what you're going to use at a certain time, because Death Coil does hit pretty hard comparable to a lot of the other Death Knight or Unholy Death Knight abilities. Moving on to, what is this one? We got Champion of Azeroth, which is a passive. Contributing to the death of an enemy of Azeroth, heals you for 786 and grants you 26 versatility for 1 minute, stacking up to 2 times. Very interesting kind of PvP related ability here, and it really comes down to how much versatility is 26 versatility after killing somebody. And I'm not really sure what the scaling rate of versatility is, but overall I'd have to say, at least from my perspective, obviously I'm going to be playing Frost, I wouldn't be using this ability. 26 versatility really just doesn't seem that great to me, and really healing for 786 damage is not that much. If they scale damage down a lot more in PvP instances, this ability could probably be more effective, but the way it currently is now, I don't see myself looking into it for Blood, Unholy, or Frost, to tell you the truth. As for the other ability we got here, it's called Deep Cuts, and it's a passive. Now you see the symbols on these 3 abilities obviously are pretty class related, since each of those symbols only rely to one class. But this ability, passive, Heart Strike, deals an additional 97 damage when hitting 3 or more targets, and heals you for the percentage of damage done. Now that right there, as you can see, is a big change when it comes to Blood DK gameplay, since it's going to give you the ability to AoE, grant you more AoE damage. It's going to generate more threat when AoEing, and also healing you for some of the damage done. Granting a lot more consistency with the Blood DK melee rotation, because in Mythic Plus is currently on Legion, you can lay out a Heart Strike rotation which deals 2 to 3 million DPS as AoE as a Blood tank. But if you're running something like Deep Cuts, currently the only problem with really DPSing on a Blood tank is the fact that your survivability is a lot lower than if your rotation was solely focused on survivability. With Deep Cuts, it might be able to give you that space when it comes to tanking, that you could actually keep up a bit of that consistent healing, and do a lot of damage to the mobs also, so you don't get nuked down with the beginning altercation of dropping Death and Decay, spreading your dots, and spamming Heart Strike to deal massive AoE damage. You wouldn't be put at as much of a risk having that kind of a rotation. Now here comes the last part for Frost DKs. This is what I'm excited about. This is going to be pretty ridiculous. We got Icy Citadel, which Pillar of Frost grants an additional 97 strength while you are above 75% health. Obviously, if you're below 75% health, something's wrong and you're getting your face punched in. You probably already should have popped Pillar of Frost before that anyways, since generally Frost DKs like to use that around opening burst unless it's an arena situation. But really, how effective is 97 strength? I mean, it sounds garbage when you first hear it. It sounds garbage when you first read it. But we really have to look at the template of the current characters to decide whether or not it is. So the first thing I did is I took the breastplate, right? And what we're going to do is take it off. Obviously, we don't want the extra 97, otherwise it would compromise the current test. So I took off the chest piece. Yeah, look at that hairy chest human. Alright, so we took off that chest piece, and what we're going to do is go ahead and pop Pillar of Frost, which is going to put it on a 1-minute cooldown. We'll have to wait for it to come back up. So what we saw there was a change of about 820 strength up to about 987 strength, which is roughly 164 strength that it buffed us up by, getting 20% extra strength, obviously from Pillar of Frost. Now this is going to be one of the ways that we can tell just how effective this chest piece is going to be. Because obviously just taking out this chest piece, we're losing 97 strength. So we put the chest piece back on, we are up to 966 strength, which if we proc up Pillar of Frost is going to bring us to roughly around, without the effect, 1160-ish, 1180-ish. So with the effect, we should be around 1200, 50 strength, roughly around there once we pop Pillar of Frost again and test it with the armor on. So obviously at this point, 97 strength is going to give us quite a bit of extra strength, surprisingly. Like, I didn't think it was going to be as effective as it is, but once you use that ability and everything procs up, it stacks the extra, 97 strength on there. You get your 20%, and we're sitting at 1,281 strength. So instead of increasing by 20%, it's increasing by, I'd have to say, more like 28%, 29% strength, just based on that. Obviously, when we go up in gear item level, strength is going to scale a little bit higher, not too much higher. But that 97 actually affects quite a bit of your DPS, and as you see at lower item level, like 185, most gear only has, 38 strength, 51 strength. I mean, chest piece is the good chest piece is 97 strength as a blue, and the pants only have 51 strength. So 97 strength is actually the equivalent to 1 to 2 pieces of gear. I mean, if you're talking about gloves, shoulders, and boots or something along those lines, it could be 3 pieces of gear. So it is actually quite a big difference with that chest piece using the correct passive slot or stat slot. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of these other things. Number 4 is level 4 is a little bit more interesting than the level 1 stuff. The level 1 stuff's cool, but I was reading some of these and I kind of got some weird ideas using these, so we're going to talk about them. Elemental Whirl passive. Your damaging abilities have a chance to grant you Elemental Whirl, increasing your critical strike, haste, mastery, versatility by 97 for 10 seconds, which could be good for any of the DPS specs. As for the tanking spec, we'd really have to see. It does increase versatility, which would be a fairly good stat to have. Now the question is, how much is 97 off stat? Now most of these armor pieces right here, as you can see, really don't have very many off stats, and for the most part, off stats, I'm pretty sure later in the expansion will become somewhat irrelevant, just for the certain fact that we have Heart of Azeroth, and that's kind of like a built-in Arcano crystal that gives you all the off stats you need, almost regardless of your gear. But we will see how that turns out later on, because obviously I'm already at 25 or almost 25% crit at level 100, but that'll probably scale down quite a bit as we level. Actually, if I remember correctly, it scaled down quite a lot on the 119 for us DK, almost down to like 11% for the majority of the off stats. So that could be pretty effective for DPS, especially early on, but we'll have to see really what the soft caps and hard caps of Frost DKs are once we've got all the extra talents put in place. As for the next ability, we've got Gut Ripper. Now, this is something I'm definitely interested in, and based on, extra damage procs, because your damaging abilities have a chance to deal 437 physical damage to the target, which, like rogues and things like that, it would definitely help out a little bit. Gut Ripper occurs much more often against targets below 30%, so Gut Ripper is more effective near death. It's going to be a bit of an executioner. I mean, as we know, Frost DKs already get a damage buff when they get a target near death. We add in a little bit of Gut Ripper, it could really add up to a lot more pressure and kind of push Frost DKs through that execution phase instead of sitting there for a long time in PvP situations. Because 437 physical damage is quite a bit. Now, I'm not 100% sure if these things are going to work inside PvP instances. Some of the information about that kind of stuff doesn't seem to be there at the moment, but we'll have to see. I'll have to test it out and try to go into an expedition or something with this on to see if it grants the extra 97 strength while in there. And we got the last one, which is Winds of War, which is definitely the tanking ability. For those three stats, taking damage grants you 97 dodge for 3 seconds, stacking up to 10 times, so it'd be about 170 dodge if you got it to stack up, obviously, to 3 times, because, I mean, you're always taking damage as the tank. You can't really get around that. As for the level 7, we got resounding protection. Resounding protection. Alright, every 30 seconds you gain Absorb Shield for 262, which, in my opinion, is kind of like a built-in Pride as, I guess. But 262 damage really isn't that much in my opinion, especially since tanks have health pools nearing max level around 52k. Obviously right now we have about 15k, and obviously with the amount of damage that people are doing, that is really not going to do very much. I'm kind of wondering if that scales or anything, but the way that currently is doesn't really do much at all. The next ability, we have Vampiric Seed, which this is probably what I'd be taking out of those two abilities unless they buff those up or something. When an enemy you damage dies, you heal for 686, which again, not really that much, I guess. But I mean, it could be quite a bit in PvE situations after healing or out there world questing. It could mean a lot more. And the other thing I'm really kind of looking into the spec for is the speed for 6 seconds. So let's say we're doing a Mythic Plus, we got to go from one mob group to the other. You kill a mob, you're able to move, or you kill a mob and some kind of mechanic comes under you during boss fight or ads or anything like that. You'll have a little bit more of a leeway to get out of the mechanic instead of dying to the mechanic on a Frost DK, because all of us DKs know. We all know how slow we are, alright? That ain't a secret. That ain't a secret. We all know. We all make jokes about it all day, about being the snail class. We all know. Alright? So the level 10 talent is going to be like, it seems to be the equivalent to the first talent on our artifact weapons on Legion, and it's just going to increase the item level of this item by 5. Now, that's going to be pretty interesting to see these work this way. I mean, 5 item level really isn't that big, even if it's just like a 185 and it brings it up to a 190, because obviously within a few levels at 110 you'll be out gearing this chest piece anyways. So I'm not really sure how they're going to go about that. Obviously it's going to stack up off of Azerite because it is Azerite powers, but other than that there isn't too much information about what's going on with the rest of the chest pieces. I've also heard that there's going to be like Azerite shoulders and a couple other pieces, but obviously they haven't implemented those into the game yet. Everyone is just wearing well, he's not even wearing the chest piece for some reason. You don't get a chest piece. You're not cool enough. All right, see, yeah, Robe's a champion and not wearing any other champion pieces of gear. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little update on what's going on DK's Azerite Armour. I figured you guys would like some little insight based around those pieces. I was kind of curious on how effective these items would be, and considering the Frost DK damage strength buff that it's going to give us, they are fairly important to our DPS. And as I said in some of the other videos, some things are lacking as far as slight damage compared to other classes, so there is definitely room for us to be built up as we get closer to launch. And the launch actually has been stated. I believe they said February, so about 4 months away is when they're planning on launching Battle for Azeroth. We'll see if they actually do. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like in if you do. And until next time, this was your boy Haze.